Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Altcoin Wednesday, aka Tuesday. I'm recording this a day ahead of time because I'll be in Nashville for the next couple days. So if you see me at the conference or around the conference or at some other conference in Nashville, it isn't somebody who looks like me. It's probably me. Today's ETH ETF launch day. It is GOX coin distro day. It's good to have everything out and done. Let's get those coins sold. Let's get any thoughts about ETH ETF flows. Let's see where the proof is in the pudding here and what happens. As far as dominance is concerned, it looks fine. This in no way, shape, or form is telling me Bitcoin dominance. It's telling me stay in Bitcoin, stay denominated in Bitcoin, measure everything you're trading in Bitcoin, because this doesn't look bearish. It's above the weekly cloud. It's still trend bullish. It might not be surging to new highs, but certainly looks fine to me on the weekly. Looking at US liquidity in the blue line, we tend to see dominance drop, Bitcoin dominance drop, when US liquidity starts to spike. So we may see that if rates come down. We may see that if global liquidity spikes, but we haven't seen that yet. Most of the money has, on a relative basis, gone into BTC. So BTC continues to be the play for me, broadly. That just makes more sense. If you can get most of the upside without worrying about crazy downside risk, why would you bother going outside of BTC? ETH, SOL, sure, but everything else to me is just unimportant right now. Going from one visually confusing chart to the next, this is US liquidity, global liquidity, Bitcoin price, stablecoin market cap, and altcoin market cap. And generally these things are correlated. 2021 certainly correlated, 2022 on the downside certainly correlated. And now since 2023, most of these metrics have been flat, except for Bitcoin price, which has continued to rise, as well as stablecoin market cap, which rose in Q4 2023, as did altcoin market cap. For the most part, the expectation is if global liquidity breaks out in the green there, it looks like it's going to. It looks like the technicals of global liquidity suggest new all-time highs. If that's the case, we should see a jump in stablecoins. We should see a jump in altcoin market cap, and we'll see a jump in Bitcoin price. Bitcoin price may be sniffing that out, as we say, already. And just looking at the two most important stablecoins, Tether and USDC, these are making new higher highs over the past couple weeks. Tether, a new all-time high in circulating supply. So it's not like every dollar feeds its way into page 57 of CoinMarketCap. There's some efficiency loss there, certainly, but it is a good sign to see stablecoin prints. It's a good sign to see global liquidity potentially ready to break out. So I think waiting for that makes a lot more sense than trying to pre-position around what may happen, just because it could still take a while. Looking at total 2 relative to BTC, stripping out the stables, this is still in a bear trend. This is still bearish. This is still sideways. It's basically inverted dominance. And there hasn't been a buy signal on this since mid-2022, which was a failed bullish recovery, bullish continuation. And since late 2023, relative to BTC, there has been no gain at all. It has been flat. And if anything down here, it's starting to looks a little bit like a spider, but starting to look like Head and Shoulders down here. Maybe this morphs into a falling wedge. Kind of looks like PayPal, right? Kind of looks like a bunch of other failed companies in the legacy land. Doesn't look like a buy to me. Does not look like something that's bad enough to buy. I would love to see this break down. Would love to see that, just to see where this could go. I assume we would find support in a similar area like 2021. I assume rates are going to play a role. I assume days after Bitcoin halving is going to play a role. I assume there's going to be some catch-up trade eventually into alts. This does not bode well in the near term for alts, though. So individual names might make sense on a week-to-week basis, but holding and sitting in something relative to BTC has not made a lot of sense. As far as the ETH ETF data, we will get that at the end of today. By the time you see this video on Wednesday, we should have the initial first day flows. Farside has this already ready to go. Nansen has a page as well. as does Blockworks. They have Bitcoin, they have ETH. They will fill this in, custodians, fees, all this fun stuff over time. But in case you wanted to see the full gamut of everything here, Blockworks has a pretty in-depth list of the global products. And if you'll remember, for Bitcoin, first couple of weeks, first couple of days especially, were net negative. Net outflows or flat. Really not expecting much here from the initial flows for ETH. It would be helpful if ETH had a price movement to get people's attention. It would be helpful if politically right now it wasn't a bunch of crazy, insane stuff going on. There's just a lot that's grabbing people's attention that is not ETH. Whereas during the BTC ETF drama, I felt like that was the predominant conversation. Now it seems like people care about something else. This will change probably in Q4, probably in 2025. I will be tracking the ETH flows just like I am for BTC, but I think it's going to take some time to get attention for ETH if Wall Street cares about it at all. And over time, they probably will. I just think initially it's going to take a second. Before I go any further here, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with a link in the description of this video. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Ventures, Inc., PVI, DBA, Kraken. Bitcoin today, obviously down slightly on 3.2 billion in coin distribution. This is between multiple exchanges. It's slightly staggered. It's going to take some time to feed its way through the ecosystem, much like the German Bitcoin selling in duration that took a while. I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as the German Bitcoin selling was. And we'll look at this chart in a few different ways in a second, but it could be we just hug 64 to 68 for a little while. Depends how happy and go lucky the BTC ETFs get buying the Dipperino here. But I'm not expecting anything crazy to the downside over the next couple of weeks. It's just going to take time to work its way through the system. So I don't think there's any rush here to do anything specifically. Well, looking at alts, if we just scroll down, let's go to 24-hour change. Bowden doing quite well. Not my cup of tea. This isn't really the channel to trade alts on low time frames, but there was really no evidence ahead of this bounce that anything was going to happen other than being at the all-time low. And you can go through most of these. There kind of isn't much out there to do anything with. ENS may be one that looks pretty good, has looked pretty good for a couple weeks. It's had this pattern up here, inverted head and shoulders. And this is definitely a rarity because most of this stuff, if you just flip through this on any given time, really isn't going to look great. You know, this is kind of a classic example of most of the layer one stuff. It had a pretty angry head and shoulders. It broke down, it reconsolidated, it broke down again. Now it is trying to make some sort of inverted head and shoulder consolidation, bullish recovery, trying to get back through the cloud. So there's really not too much for me to say about most of this stuff. If it's got a chart pattern, breakup potential, I like it. But for the most part, most of this list, there really just isn't much going on. Stacks is another one that was a crowd favorite many moons ago. And you've got this stuff, right? So yeah, that's tradable. There's something like that on Link, on AVAX. If you really want a trade, to take a trade, that's a trade. I certainly prefer trend over little stuff like this, but you could argue that's a daily edge to edge. There's a chart pattern there. So there's some stuff that's tradable. I just think on balance, for most people, probably better off here just waiting for a better setup. I thought I'd lead with Bitcoin Cash over Bitcoin because there are a lot of Bitcoin Cash coins, BCH coins, getting distributed along with BTC from Gox. And if I had to guess, most people are not holding their BCH. They are probably selling that immediately. They're probably thinking about selling or definitely selling their BTC. My guess is most people, as they probably should, by the way, over 10 years ago in stasis, should be selling their BTC. Good for them. It's something like a 1,200% gain in USD. I have nothing wrong with that. So let it happen. Let them sell. Let them sell to a BlackRock or whoever else. It is what it is. It's going to happen anyway. But BCH, probably not a buy here. Probably not a buy here for quite some time, if ever, just as it was never really a buy this entire time. Like many pairs against BTC, just doesn't hold up well. It's just math. It's just history. It's just what's happened. There's a reason people don't like altcoins, and it's charts like that. It'd be a different story if we had competition that over time was stronger or over time had a decent return. But for the most part, that just isn't the case. Another view of Bitcoin here. It's above the 20-week still. It's above the 200-day, the red one down here. There's a bearish to get across a bearish cloud. Okay, great. We know all that stuff. There's a bunch of supports on the way down. Ultimately, I don't really want anything below the yearly pivot, 62.7. Is this a massive downward channel? Is this some sort of megaphone wedge? I don't know. Lots of ways you can interpret this range. That's one way. The pitchfork is another way. This pitchfork looks pretty good. This would point to a suggestion of this being the local top, and something to watch for would be back down to mid 50s. I don't really think that's going to be the case. If we weren't seeing the ETF flows we were seeing, I would probably be a little bit more confident that we were going to delve deeper. But the ETF flows, if you haven't noticed, have picked up successively here since the beginning of the month. And each week we've had higher and higher flows. So that's pretty bullish for BTC. There's a potential right angle, the triangle-y thing. It all measures to the same. You just find the depth, you measure it higher. You get basically 100K. Is this a falling wedge that already broke out? Something that I haven't seen too many people talk about. Maybe. We don't have a fractal here yet as a trailing stop loss on the daily. The 12-hour trailing stop loss fractals are pretty noisy, so I'd be careful with those, but we'd likely get a fractal on the current candle. We won't know for a couple days whether or not we do see a fractal there, but this of course measures to the same spot. So as long as BTC can hold a range, whatever that may be, it's massive, right? There's a huge range here, 50 to 60, 50 to 70, 50 to 74. A lot can happen here, and I think until Bitcoin finds a clear direction, momentum comes back, it's going to be tough for alts to do much of anything. Looking at ETH, you really wouldn't know where the ETF launched. You maybe guessed the approval correctly because that was a massive candle. Here, maybe this is an eventual inverted head and shoulders. There's just nothing here. There's really nothing here. It's above the 20-week. It's above the 200-day. It's at the cloud. There's really nothing for me here. Anything above 4,000 as a breakout trade probably makes sense, but I'd love to see what the flows are going to be. I'd love to see what the flows are going to be over the next month, and then we can talk. If the flows are next to nothing for a month and there's net outflows for a month, ETH USD probably doesn't look great. So that's just something to consider. It certainly doesn't look like the buildup we had into the Bitcoin ETFs. And you could say, well, it's all priced in already. Everybody knew it was coming, probably, eventually. Sure. Are we going to say the same thing for Sol and every other alt 2 years from now? It was already priced in. I don't think we can go that far, but the ETH USD chart just doesn't look like anything special here. It doesn't look like a trade just yet. ETH BTC also probably eventually maybe will get an inverted head and shoulders. This would be a massive, massive inverted head and shoulders. The trade to take, again, is probably going to be Q4 at 06. That would be the level to watch. That's where I'd set alerts. And I would just ignore this chart and hope it doesn't go lower, because I really don't think there's much to do here. Maybe you put bids at like 054, but there just doesn't seem to be a trade yet. And that's part of the game. Just watching for months. In like April or May, I said, hey, this might be an inverted head and shoulders. It might take a long time. That was just an idea. That was just a guess. And here we are forming the right shoulder. This is still a guess. It's not complete. It's not telling you to take the trade. I take the trade at the breakout, not at formation of the pattern. I'd much rather have confirmation. So we'll probably have rates down. We'll probably have, if this breaks up, rates down, some sort of president who doesn't hate crypto, whoever that is, and other reasons that this goes up. But we're not there yet. And it just doesn't make sense to hold ETH over BTC based on that technical pattern. Another BTC chart, I don't need to really cover this, but low time frames, we had a inverted head and shoulders potential here as well. This didn't quite form as expected. We got a little bit more of a boost here. And now there's a bear div on the 4 hour rolling over. We got GOX stuff, right? We got a whole bunch of stuff. We're not quite to that target yet. So this is the danger of waiting. If we contrast this with ETH, this looks much more convincing as a breakout trade, whereas this just moved super quick and you really never got a chance to buy again at 60K. Sol looks better than ETH to me. It's farther above the cloud. It's at horizontal resistance, well above the 20-week, 200-day. Cloud's still pending on a full signal twist here. So it's really just a waiting game. Pretty rangy range. That's the technical term. Not really much going on here. It's on the right side of the range. Anything above 200 is probably go time. It looks okay. You know, again, it's not like screaming some sort of pending breakout. It probably needs a week. It may need 2 months. It's hard to say because it's just been ranging for so long. One thing that might get this to break out, if we see a Sol ETF application from BlackRock, which would suggest a high success rate on getting ETFs, that may help move this higher. Whether or not that gets approved, I don't know. But that's one thing to think about that's upcoming. Sol BTC also looks pretty strong. Was this a head and shoulders? Was this a double bottom? It's back into bullish territory. It looks decently okay. So one thing to watch for would be new higher highs here. But would I rather trade Sol BTC or would I rather trade ETH BTC? That's something to ask yourself. Sol ETH, by the way, still looks quite strong. So on a relative value basis, ETH doesn't make sense here yet to me, based on technicals. It just doesn't. Looking at meme coins, Doge still in recovery mode, not even in the daily cloud yet, but that's one trade to take. Some sort of edge to edge to, I don't know, 16.5 cents or something like that. Trend-wise, still bearish. SHIB, trend-wise, still bearish. Both of these could form some sort of diamond bottom, but trend is not on your side yet for a bullish recovery. Of all of the 6 meme coins here, Pepe looks the strongest. It's starting to get back above the cloud. I don't really see anything great. You know, if you zoom in on this, is there any sort of trend here, a pattern here? Is there anything? Is this just range chop? It looks like range chop to me. Bonk looks like an absolute nightmare of range chop, as does Whiff. My guess is whichever one of these coins breaks out is going to be related to a Sol breakout above 200 or an ETH breakout above 4,000. So maybe it's better to think about the layer ones first rather than trading the associated meme coin. Floki also just ranging. So there's really nothing here yet either for me. It looks like turbo uber mega chop still. Lastly here on some mid caps, I guess you could call them, still in the doghouse, in the jailhouse, really not much going on. AXS, Mana, Filecoin, Flow, Sand, Algo, just chopping around. Stuff like this probably needs significant liquidity to move higher, and it probably is a catch-up trade maybe in like Q2 2025 if Q4 is late or if something's different about Q4 than expectations. These just don't look like they have any buyers. They only have sellers. These lows, these all-time lows, don't look like they'll hold. So I would set your expectations and sizing accordingly. Overall, just more waiting. I do not see anything here across the board that looks compelling. Maybe Sol BTC and Sol USD being the strongest. Ultimately, we're going to need BTC to break out. Most likely, we're going to need ETH and or Sol to break out again. But until then, I would just expect range-bound nothingness with that exciting message. That's all I have for this one. No stream on Thursday, by the way. I'll be gone. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.